Here's a rewritten version, ready for voiceover, keeping the same hook style and main idea while making the language fresh and distinct from the original. Colorado is walking into this season with far fewer question marks than most teams in the league, and that alone should worry every other contender in the Western Conference. MacKinnon is a known quantity at this point, a player whose ceiling and floor are both understood by everyone who follows this franchise closely. Cale Makar isn't up for debate either. He's simply going to keep doing what he does, anchoring one of the most dominant defensive pairings hockey has seen in years. Necas just wrapped up a career season, cracking the 100-point mark for the first time, and there's no reason to think he suddenly regresses. Toews remains the steady, reliable presence on the back end that coaches dream about, the guy who rarely makes the highlight reel but never seems to be caught out of position either. Put all of that together and you get a roster with very few genuine mysteries, which is exactly why this offseason in Denver has felt so uneventful compared to other franchises scrambling to fix holes. But there's one name on this roster that breaks the pattern, one player whose return changes the entire complexion of what this team can become, and that's their captain, Gabriel Landeskog. For the first time in what feels like forever, the Avalanche are heading into opening night with a real expectation that Landeskog will be in the lineup, healthy, and able to play a full season, all the way through what they hope ends with another deep playoff push and a shot at lifting the cup. If that actually happens, Colorado isn't just adding a name back to the roster sheet, they're getting back the heartbeat of this team, the guy capable of shifting the entire trajectory of their season just by being present. Now, Landeskog is far more than a stat line, but the numbers still tell a story worth paying attention to. His value to this group goes beyond assists and goals. It shows up in something that ultimately matters more than any individual box score, and that's winning hockey games. Sure, you need to put pucks in the net to win, that part's obvious, but look at what happens to Colorado's record depending on whether Landeskog is in the lineup or not. With him skating last season, this team went an incredible 45-7-8. Take him out of the equation, and that same roster dropped to a rough 10-9-3. That is not some random statistical blip you can wave away. That's a pattern too strong to ignore. Across 60 regular season appearances, Landeskog put up 14 goals and 21 assists for 35 points, while carrying a +29 rating, solid numbers on their own, but they still don't capture the full picture of what he brings. His real value shows up in the little things that never make it onto a stat sheet, winning battles along the boards, creating chaos and traffic in front of the opposing net, setting a physical tone that the rest of the roster feeds off of. Watch closely enough and it becomes obvious. This team plays differently, better, when Landeskog is out there on the ice with them. Scoring is part of his game, sure, but it's never been the whole story with him. What separates Landeskog is his leadership, his willingness to engage physically, and a net front presence that very few players around the league can replicate. His constantly creating chances that never show up in a highlight package, fighting for pucks below the goal line, taking hits and absorbing punishment in the blue paint that quietly tips games in Colorado's favor. In a lot of ways, the identity of this entire franchise mirrors the way Landeskog plays the game, gritty, relentless, and unwilling to back down. Getting him back for a complete, healthy season could end up being the single factor that tilts Colorado's Stanley Cup odds in their favor. And it's not just about what he does individually, it's about the ripple effect his presence has on everyone else in the room. His return gives head coach Jared Bednar the freedom to put players in roles that actually suit their strength, rather than being forced to plug younger, still developing skaters into spots they aren't quite ready for yet. That depth becomes a nightmare for opposing coaching staffs to game plan against, because suddenly every single line on the ice presents a real threat. Pair Landeskog back up alongside MacKinnon, and you're looking at a combination that's genuinely difficult to defend against for 60 straight minutes. Even when he's skating with other scoring lines, opposing teams have to account for him, because he's a threat to score, and he's just as comfortable doing the dirty, unglamorous work away from the puck that wins hockey games in April, May, and June. That combination, the ability to produce offensively while also controlling the physical and emotional tempo of a game, is exactly the kind of trait that turns a very good team into a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And when it comes to chasing that ultimate goal, Landeskog's value only grows. Last postseason, in just 13 games, he put up 6 goals and 11 points, proof that when the intensity ramps up and every mistake carries real consequences, he's still more than capable of producing at a high level. This is a Colorado roster absolutely loaded with talent, elite talent from top to bottom, the kind of roster that doesn't need to manufacture storylines because the pieces already fit together. And Landeskog fits right into that elite category, a player who has consistently proven that he thrives most when the stakes are at their highest. So while the conversation around this team so often circles back to MacKinnon, or Makar, or the breakout numbers from Necas, the truth is the biggest swing factor for Colorado this season isn't any of those household names. It's their captain. It's whether Landeskog can stay on the ice, stay healthy, and bring that same relentless identity to every single shift for a full 82-game season and beyond. Because when he's out there, the records speak for itself, and when he's not, this team simply looks like a different, less less dangerous version of itself. That's not coincidence, that's the reality of what one player, when he's the right player, can mean to a locker room, to a lineup, and to a season. Colorado's ceiling this year isn't defined by their superstar center or their generational defenseman. Both of those pieces are already locked in and performing at an elite level regardless of circumstance. The real variable, the true X-factor heading into this season, is whether their captain can finally give them a full, uninterrupted year of everything he brings to this franchise. If he does, don't be surprised when Colorado's name comes up again and again in every serious conversation about who's hoisting the Stanley Cup at the end of this season.